So let's talk about a couple of key things that you talk about in your book as we look at the trauma psychology, because there's all the logistics of this, but you talked about the guilt and shame that you experienced when you lost your fingers. Talk about the subject of forgiveness. Who did you have to forgive, and how'd you do that?
First off, you got to forgive yourself.
Hi, I'm Cos Green. Welcome to the program. Think about this for a moment. Think about your hands and your fingers. From the minute you wake up to the second you go to sleep, you're using your hands and your fingers. Sure, we're dependent on our legs to get around, but it's our hands and our fingers that we use most of the time. The finger and partial hand are the largest group in the upper limb amputation sector. Yet society and the medical establishment recognize them the least. My guest has coined the phrase most used and least recognized. My guest today is a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather. He's also an advocate, an author, a speaker, and the founder of a foundation to help people along their journey as amputees. My friends, help me welcome Jeff Soelberg. Jeff, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Cos.
It is so good to have you here.
Yes.
And it's going to be so great to tell your story and then how you're advocating for partial amputees. So I want to set the stage, and I want to do something that I didn't do the first time we met correctly, and that was shake your hand. I want to just tell the audience, when you reached out to me and said, hey, will you help me with my book? And you took me to dinner, I didn't know what to expect. And so there in the lobby of the Grand America, when you pulled out your hand and went to shake my hand, I didn't know what to do. So my apologies for that. And that's got to be a common response, though.
Oh, it is. 80-90% of the time. If people don't know my story, that is it. The deer in the headlights.
I was just like, and just the way you flipped it out that day, because I think you had your fingers retracted.
Yeah.
And so when we went to shake hands, you were like, boom. And I was like, so I've come to truly understand your story. And then yesterday, when we had kind of a pre-show talk, we went even more in depth about the psychology of being an amputee and just advocating for yourself. So I want to get into all that and really help other people understand if they're going through this, as well as how other people can be a good support system for this, okay?
Yes.
So let's go back. Let's start with your story, July 6th, 2016. Set the stage for us. Where are you? What happened specifically that led to the loss of your fingers?
Okay, so I, at the time, worked for a refinery here in Salt Lake, making the gas that gets us around. I was a maintenance machinist, and that day, a partner and I, we pulled the pump out, we were repairing it, and part of the safety protocol, PPE, personal safety equipment, is wearing gloves. That afternoon, I'm working on a lathe, polishing a shaft, and my glove got caught. And for a split second, the picture in my head was my hand going into this machine an inch at a time, going up my arm.
So really it was the glove that got ingested into the equipment.
Yes.
And took your fingers with it.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe if you didn't have the gloves on, that might not have happened.
You know,
But you had to. That was an OSHA requirement, right?
It was a company requirement.
Okay.
And since then, they have changed their policy.
Really?
Yeah. But you know, I had been a machinist for 45 years at that time, and doing that same application, and I had numerous little nicks, and that's what it would have been.
Like a paper cut or something.
Yeah, basically a paper cut. I've never had stitches for any of them.
Wow.
So, Yeah.
So the machine ingests your hand and you're watching your fingers get pulled off.
Yeah.
Literally right in front of your eyes.
100%. And it's
So show us again, you lost your middle three.
Yes. They number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, thumb being the most important. So I lost 2, 3, and 4. But at the time of the accident, they came off on an angle. But it degloved, took all the skin, tendon, and everything back to my knuckles. So I stepped back. I have a nice fountain coming out the end of my hand. And I apply pressure. I call to a coworker to get rescue coming, of which rescue there at the refinery is coworkers doing their everyday job. I sit there for a second, and let me step back a second. At that time, I had been on the ski patrol for a number of years, close to 15 years. And so I had medical training. I take and I released the glove for a second, looked at my hand, and, you know, I didn't go into shock and pass out, but I was in shock.
Sure.
You know, they say everything's going a million miles an hour, but in slow motion, all at the same time. I knew my fingers were gone. I remember sitting there, moving my hand, looking at it, analyzing it. But at the same time, I didn't know where they were, and I wasn't worried about them. I knew I had to stop the blood.
Yeah, you're bleeding.
I had to stop the blood
you're
flow.
in trauma.
And we have an on-site clinic there. I was about 100 yards from the clinic. And I thought for a second, okay, coworkers coming. It might be 5-10 minutes before they get to me. My coworker that had radioed rescue comes up, and I looked at him and I go, walk with me. And we started walking
Have
to
you
the
put like
clinic.
a tourniquet or anything on it?
I was just applying pressure.
Okay, it looked like a towel or...
lowering the blood flow a little bit. No, I had a nice greasy glove on.
Oh, you had the glove still on. Okay, gotcha.
No, the one glove had come off, but the glove I had on this hand was dirty, greasy, and I was just trying to stop the blood flow.
Gotcha.
So we did walk into the clinic, at which time the nurse, she starts freaking out and takes me over to the sinks, trying to wash everything. And I look at her and I tell her, you get every bit of gauze you got in this room and start packing and wrapping. We got to stop the blood flow now. Yeah. There's nothing you're going to do here. We just got to stop the blood flow. At which time we get it stopped. I go sit down. We put oxygen on me, and people start showing up about that time. My boss, he shows up, and he asks who I want him to call, and I handed him my phone and asked him to call my wife. I was 6 months into my second marriage at that time, and baptized her by fire in that sense.
Welcome to my new world.
Exactly. It was crazy because she sees my number come up on her phone at work, and she's like, okay, this is strange. Why is he calling me, middle of the afternoon? And she picks it up, and it's my boss, and he says, hey, Jeff's had an accident, and he's on his way to the U of U hospital. She hangs up, and she had grown up in Utah, but had lived in Idaho for many years. Just moved back. She turns to a coworker and has to ask where the U of U hospital is. So I get loaded in the ambulance. I give kudos to the EMT because he takes and sticks the IV in me as we're rolling out the gate. We're on the move. They're getting me to the hospital. On the way to the hospital, I handed the EMT my phone and asked him to call my oldest son, of which it went to voicemail. He leaves a message for him. Get to the hospital. It's about 3:30 in the afternoon. And they start working on me, stabilizing me, and figuring out, making a plan and stuff. There's good points and bad points to go into a level 1 trauma hospital. You got the best surgeons and stuff there. But I went through the doors about 3:30 in the afternoon. I went into surgery at 11:30 that night. Hung out in the ER room for 8 hours.
I want to jump ahead a little bit and then come back to the rest of the story in a way, because this experience led to you wanting to write a book. And so you wrote the book. Yeah. But I want to know two things. So two-part question. Why did you write the book and who's it for? And then secondly, how did this, not just this, but how did this change your life?
And yeah, that's the important thing. And the whole reason for the book, the doctors and nurses and everybody, they try to inspire you that, yeah, you'll be able to adapt and life goes on. And I'm sitting there struggling every day.
And you told me repeatedly, you've told me throughout this process, people are like, oh, come on, you just lost 3 fingers. Move on, right? We know people who have lost both legs, they've lost arms, but that gets minimized. Was it minimized to you at first?
It honestly was. It was, and I was struggling. So, kind of our primal instinct is bigger, badder, faster, greater.
Right.
The bull elk has the harem of cows and everything. And everyone looks at a leg or an arm, and not to take anything away from those, because any limb loss is a major thing. Mentally, physically, both. But the thing that makes us finger partial hands different is an arm or a leg, they're missing. So they aren't trying to do things with what's left. I still have 2 fingers. I'm missing 3. I'm still trying to do everything every day like I did it for 53 years before that.
But why did you want to reach out and put it on paper?
So
who's that for?
It's for everyone, top to bottom.
How so?
But,
how's it for everyone? For those that have 10 fingers.
Well, it's educating them as to the struggles, but a year and a half after my accident, I got certified as a peer visitor for the Amputee Coalition of America.
What a concept. Be visited by another amputee.
And yeah, that's just it.
That's huge right there.
100%. And we go back to, I was in the hospital for 5 days, laying there in hospital bed, family and friends come and see me and everything. I never once had an amputee come and see me. And so I start talking to these amputees, and I keep hearing over and over again, they're having the same struggles as I am, each and every one of them.
And there was no common source of information for this. You're all winging it yourself.
Exactly.
So you said, let's start educating people.
And that is it. When I do a peer visit with them, they get my number, and my phone's on 24/7. Anytime they need to reach out, they're welcome to reach out, and we'll talk. And there's so many times I'll get a little one-liner from someone that just says they don't understand me. Talking about family or friend or coworker or whatever. And, we start talking. And I just got to calm them down. So within the book itself, each chapter is a different aspect of that. Pain management, live with pain every day. How to talk to family and friends, because I'll give you a story that I just learned about in the last couple of weeks. A young lady last summer that got her hand caught in a meat grinder. Mm-hmm. And she's missing 4 fingers. And the person that told me about her, I give her my number, say, here, share it with her. I'm welcome. I'll talk to her anytime whatsoever. And we've talked a couple of times since, and she said, yeah, she talked to her mom, and she's a teenager. She's becoming a recluse because we feel less because we're missing those limbs, and she doesn't want to leave the house.
So it really has affected her self-concept, her self-esteem, everything.
100%.
Losing some digits.
100%. And I don't know what I need to do to honestly get it across to the medical establishment and stuff. Call me. They all know me. They all have my number, but they focus on their slice of the pie and leave me out.
You see, and that's what blew me away yesterday when we were talking about this, because as I've learned more and more, right, there's hundreds of specialties in the medical profession. And literally, they don't communicate, right? You go to a heart doctor for your heart. You go to this doctor for this. They don't get together instead of treating the whole person. And so you literally have been through an amazing experience with your hand. And it's not necessarily, it was a good experience overall with the medical situation. But the thing I like what you talk about in the book as well, and I think this is part of your mission, is all of these pieces have to come together. It's not just about replacing 2 or 3 fingers with a prosthetic. It's the whole person we have to talk about. And that's what I believe your book really does.
Yeah. And society in general. Ironically, at the time we're speaking here, it's Mental Health Awareness Month. And, that is one of the biggest things nowadays. Everybody, look at the famous people that have taken their own lives because of mental health. And society in general just does not realize all those challenges.
So you had a hand specialist come in, deal with your hand. Mm-hmm. But then you were kind of left to your own devices, and the book picks up from there so that you can advocate for yourself and pull in these other pieces, the psychology of this, so that you can move on with your life. Because that's the advice they give, right? Their rehabilitation is, well, yeah, you're missing 3 fingers, so just you'll do great.
Yeah.
Pat you on the back, send you on your way. But what blew me away yesterday when you were talking about this, your hand specialist didn't even introduce you to prosthetics.
No. And here's
so
another.
They fixed your hand, but then you're left to your own devices to go figure out the prosthetics.
Yeah.
And the thing that blew me away, so fingal partial hands are over 90% of all upper limb amputations. So there's about 45,000 of those a year. Only 5% only get prosthetics.
Yeah.
That blew me away.
Yeah.
So, for instance, this young lady in Idaho that got her hand in the meat grinder, she may not get a prosthetic because insurance doesn't like to pay claims. Your saving grace, if there is one, is because you got injured on the job and you had workers' comp.
Yes.
If you would have been left to your own medical insurance, it might not have happened the way it did because you've got several versions of your hand.
Yeah.
And they're not cheap. Not necessarily a $6 million man, but kinda.
I'm starting to work towards that.
Right?
And us stating ourselves,
Yeah,
he had skin issues on his arm.
Right, but I mean, give us. Let's finish that thought though first about the book. But how has writing the book changed your life and helped solidify the mission that you have to educate and bless the lives of others who are going through such a situation? How's that changed your life?
Well,
From when we went to dinner, a year ago?
yeah. So the big thing is, when we have something happen to us and we feel like we're damaged goods in some sort
Because
of
we already
way.
feel that way.
Oh yeah,
Bad
we
enough,
beat
right?
up on
And
ourselves
then something
every
else
day.
happens, sure.
Yeah, we feel we're damaged goods, and we start belittling ourselves. And I was grateful. I worked for the company for another 8 years.
Oh, you did?
Yes, and I was grateful to have a job every day, but I kind of flew under the radar. And
How do you mean?
I didn't have a voice. It was not until I started writing the book and stuff that I really started diving in to my own challenges. And, I was still doing the same tasks I did before my accident at work, of which one day I'm sitting there going, oh, I might be putting myself into some situations that aren't safe again because of my limitations with my hand. And I went to the company at that point in time and said, hey, we need to sit down and have a little discussion here about things. And it was very interesting in the sense that the company came back and they go, just go to your doctor and get him to sign a letter of restrictions. And I go, hold on a second. I really don't have restrictions. I have limitations. And we went back and forth over that word restriction and limitations. And they pull in the company attorneys, the medical
And you and
doctor.
they have to protect themselves, of course.
Oh, yeah. But I had opened their eyes, too,
Sure.
at the same time. And so it took about 6 months. They kept trying to push it off on my hand surgeon just to say what I could and couldn't do. And he came back and he goes, I don't know what he does. So how can I do that? I'm not going to be held responsible for him getting hurt by saying he can do something. So then it goes to the company medical director. And like I said, it took about 6 months to draw up what I was allowed to do and not do at work for a safety aspect of my own.
Tell me about the emotion, though, in that situation. Is it a sense of guilt? Is there shame? What is it that then cloaks you with these negative emotions that you're less than?
Within my situation, it was a little bit of both. It was guilt. I knew I shouldn't have been wearing a glove.
But you had to.
Exactly. I had had a discussion a few
So why would you be
weeks.
guilty if you had to wear a glove to be compliant with OSHA or the company?
It's guilt within myself
Gotcha.
for knowing better but still doing it. And then, the shame of it happening. Again, the fact that I knew better. So,
And then the shame that now this affects my marriage and it affects my employment and it affects all my relationships and can I work and can I not work? And we put ourselves in that shame spiral. So you're saying that's real, and again, I'm not minimizing, but to our point that we started with, whether it's one finger, 3 fingers, a leg, an arm, that's what we're talking about. It's part of your body, therefore it affects you.
yes. It is.
So we need to give people grace, whether it's one finger or whatever,
Yeah.
because we don't know the curriculum that they're going through
And
that's teaching them these valuable lessons.
and that is one of the things I say every day. We don't know what we don't know. And we can see, I can see you have 10 fingers and everything. You're missing a little bit of hair on top.
Well, since I started parting it in the middle, it looks different.
But we just don't know each other's story. I have a good friend that has had a couple of brain tumors. And 30 years ago, when they found the first one and went in and removed it, something happened and they hit her optic nerve. She's blind in one eye. She's a beautiful lady. And to look at her, there's nothing wrong with her.
She's blind.
But she's blind in one eye, which affects her field of depth.
I can't even imagine that.
And, towards evening time, walking around, curbs, cracks in the road, all those things, she can't tell where it is. And is she on trip and fall? We don't know each other's story. We need to have empathy and compassion for each other.
So it's been the net result for you looking back this last year and putting this all together and now releasing this and speaking about it. What's it done to you? What's it done to your soul?
It's gave me a voice, of which I wrote a little poem. And
I didn't know you were a poet.
Yeah. AI helped a little bit too.
How much?
But this honestly is my code or creed.
Okay.
Going forward. By breath and word, I rise and stand, the voice of those with absent hand. Fingers lost, yet spirit whole. I speak with fire, I lead with soul. Let gold and green like rivers flow, from heart to hand, from high to low. Not for greed, but gifts to give, so others too may dream and live. Abundance come by stars and sea, through me, then out, so all may be. Wrapped in joy, in love's pure light, no hand too broken to hold what's right. By power just and purpose true, I claim this path, I walk it through. So mote it be and let it shine, this magic of the heart divine.
Beautiful. So it gave you a voice.
It has.
And that voice has blessed so many lives.
It has. It's so funny. The average author out there only sells 300 copies of their book.
Yeah, but they're sold. Write a book, you'll sell millions of copies and live on the beach for the rest of your life.
Social media. Yeah, we love those pipe dreams. But, I sell mine through Amazon, and I was in KDP looking a few weeks ago. I had this discussion, and surprising to me, I knew that my book had gone to 7 other countries because I had people reach out to me wanting autographed copies. And I'd autograph and mail them to them and stuff. And I start filtering, and it blows me away. My book's gone to 15 different countries in the world, 6 of 7 continents. And the 7th continent, it's on its way.
As soon as penguins learn how to read.
There's a library in Antarctica.
I'm sure there is.
And mine is on a boat.
Oh, good. Well, kudos to you, because so many people think, I need to write a book, and you did, and it's changing lives. So kudos for all the people that you're helping. So let's now dive a little deeper into the story, because I want I want to talk about some key things that you talk about in your book, because these are lessons for everyone. Because if you said to yourself, this is going out to the market of partial hand amputees, it's a pretty small market, right? You're not going to sell millions of books if you're just going after that market. However, those who know somebody who's going through something similar to this, it doesn't have to be identical to losing the 3 middle fingers. But let's talk about specifically the multiple surgeries you had, because we see veterans and other people who go through accidents. It's not like you're one and done. There's multiple surgeries. So just talk about the complexity of multiple surgeries, because your first hand surgeon did what he did with your hands, but then you had to go back and they actually took more, and then they talk about multiple surgeries and what you should expect in the recovery process.
Yeah, so I call it a journey. And that's with any amputation whatsoever. Depending upon their age and how long they're an amputee, a lot of times they'll go through revisions because things wear out, the skin breaks down. If you're a leg amputee, you're always pushing down in that socket and everything. So they need to go back, do revisions.
And there's
back.
Emergency care, and then there's let's do this for the long term. Okay, sure.
All of that. And so
you can expect that.
Yeah.
You should expect that.
At the time of my accident, my surgeon told me, he goes, we're going to try and save as much as possible. But I want to be honest with you. What you end up with more than likely won't be what you have today. And that's been the case. I've had to date 9 surgeries to my hand. I had 5 the first 12 weeks after my accident. And 2 of those surgeries have been revision surgeries where we took things away. If you look at that prosthetic there, it's just 2 digits, where this one's 3. At the time I got the first one, I had a partial of my ring finger, and that was so that your number 1 pinch grip, they call it, is thumb to index. You use that the most.
Sure.
And so I was advised at the time to leave a little bit of my ring finger so that I wasn't having to reach as far with my thumb to create that pinch for everything. And so we did. And again, it's a journey and stuff. That we learn. So I'm a mechanic, machinist, and everything. I work on my vehicle. And I was changing the brakes on my truck one day. And one side wasn't too bad, but the other side was like standing on my head because it was backwards, and the dominant hand to try and do it didn't have fingers and everything. And I tore my rotator cuff on the good side. I try and self-rehab for a few months and stuff, and finally things aren't getting better. So I go in and see the orthopedic surgeon and stuff, and he goes, yeah, we got to do surgery on you. So we do surgery, and for a period of time, I was down to 2 fingers. Couldn't do anything with this side.
Oh,
and that opened.
Left arm's out of commission. You're just down to your pinky and your thumb.
Yeah. And at that time, I called my ring finger stubby, a little short thing, but it wouldn't move. It just was kind of there. And I'd go to get a drink of water, glass, and I'd push that glass around the table because I couldn't get stubby out of the way to grab it with the 2 fingers I had. And so I'm like, okay, as soon as my shoulder's well enough, stubby's got to go away. And so that's when I became the full 3-finger amputee. But again, so the 2 revisions, the first one, we set the date. I knew it needed to happen, but it was 2 weeks until the surgery. And that 2 weeks was very emotional. I knew it had to happen, but I was still giving up a part of my body that I had had all my life, 50-something years. When the second revision came around, I knew what I was actually gaining by getting rid of that. And that 2-week time frame was like, let's just get this over and done with. I can't wait for that day so I can get on and live life. Going back to the book, each chapter is a different part of that journey. Yeah. Pain management, how to talk to your family and friends, how to create your own multidisciplinary team, trauma counseling, pain management, all of that. And it's because of those struggles. I had to create my own teams. It's changing. It's just like I've been so blessed. This is just a sample of the hands I've had over the years, but this is the majority. It's carbon fabricated and everything, and I go in for my first fitting. They make this up for me. I put it on, and they ask me, well, how's it feel? And I go, well, you know, it feels like a cast with fingers attached to it. How's it supposed to feel? We have no clue. This is new.
Foreign.
To us.
Yeah, it's foreign to your
and
body.
Most likely, the CPO prosthetist that's working with you has 10 fingers, so he can give you his viewpoint, but he doesn't know what it feels like. So for years, I had this. And I would wear them for a period of time, a couple hours, but it was loose. I'd grab stuff and it'd create hot spots. And I'd have to take it off for a period of time and back on and off. And then a few years ago, this company here that I have the most fingers with, they started 3D printing the frames. And their medical director came up with this different design. This right here, they kind of call it the clamshell because you kind of slide your hand in like the mouth of the clam. And this one, they call it the hook because it hooks around your hand. The moment I got my first one of this design.
What does something like that cost?
I'm told it's around $30,000 in product-wise. I've never seen a
Is
bill.
that one of the reasons people don't get prosthetics? Bottom line?
It's one of them. You know, the insurance company denies, so then it's on them. And kind of the rule of thumb I've been told is it's $10,000 per digit, basically.
That you're compensated for.
That it costs.
Oh, that it costs.
That's for this particular one. This hand here is myoelectric, and it's $25,000-$30,000.
A digit?
Digit.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that's got to be cost prohibitive for some people.
The majority. I mean, how?
Because insurance is not in the business of paying claims.
$30,000 to $70,000. How many new cars can you go buy?
Right. Well, that's why bankruptcy, the number one cause of bankruptcy in America today is unpaid medical bills.
Yeah.
For that reason.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you were blessed to be able to get these prosthetics, but to the point that we brought up earlier, only 5% of people get prosthetics.
Yeah.
And you're just told to just figure it out. So let's talk about a couple of key things that you talk about in your book as we look at the trauma psychology, because there's all the logistics of this, but you talked about the guilt and shame that you experienced when you lost your fingers. Talk about the subject of forgiveness. Who did you have to forgive, and how'd you do that?
First off, you got to forgive yourself for beating up on yourself. And then, there were different things. Like the company has an accidental death dismemberment policy on me. All right, I have my accident. They got a dismemberment policy. I fill out the paperwork. I send it in. And a month later, I get this letter in the mail saying, denied. And it's like, okay. Well,
you didn't qualify as a dismemberment?
No.
Okay.
The fine print of that policy, it pays out for thumb and index finger.
Together?
Yes.
You'd have to lose those two.
Yes. Okay. Or 4 fingers. I only lost 3.
Gotcha.
I got nothing. So then, the added expense of everything, the guilt there. I'm feeling like I'm a lesser individual, lesser husband.
Because your capabilities were affected.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And it's a big struggle.
Did it affect your marriage?
It did. So, again, I get out of the hospital. I'm starting to recover. And I have to try and figure out what I can still do. So I was going to the gym 5 days a week before my accident. I start going to the gym again. And this plays into the mental struggles. My arms all wrapped up. I'm on an exercise bike for the first little while. And it took the tendons clear from my elbow at the time of the accident. And that first surgery, to get as much blood flow out to what was left, they cut my arm open to prevent what they call compartment syndrome, where I might lose more digits, possibly my hand and stuff. And then 5 days later, they went in and tried to sew things back up, and it was still swollen so much that they had to graft skin. So at that point in time, skin grafts, as they are healing up, are very gross. They take the skin from my hip, put it on my arm, and I'm at the gym, and this friend of mine comes up, and she asked to see my hand and arm. And I look at her, and I kind of make the off cough and sarcastic comment, I hope it doesn't gross you out. Because me missing the fingers, having the scars and everything, I was feeling gross, inadequate, lesser, all of those things. And she takes and she looks at it very intently for a period of time. And then she looks me in the eye and she goes, it's not as bad as I thought it'd be. And at that point in time, she tore down the curtain, the wall I was trying to build to protect you and the public from seeing what I thought was gross and everything. And through my peer support, that's one of those struggles the other amputees are having. I met with an individual one day and we're talking, I'm showing him my prosthesis, and he looks at me and he goes, I don't want to look like a freak. We all tell each other
we
ourselves,
make such horrible movies in our head.
100%.
The movies we make in our head are worse than anything that we could do in reality.
It is. And so one day, my wife at the time, she's cleaning up around the house, and she just comes unglued on me. She goes, you go to the gym every day, work out and everything, but I can't get you to do anything around here. And I tried to explain to her, partly my range of grip and stuff is very narrow. Fine things are a big struggle. Big things are a big struggle for me. And finger length somewhat determines both of those, top and bottom. So in our discussion, I said, okay, walk in my shoes for a moment. And I taped up 3 of her fingers and told her to go about her day doing the housework. And she went about 10 minutes, and she rips the tape off, and she looks at me, and she goes, I'll never know what you're going through, but I cannot do this way. And that was kicking me right in the gut. Yeah, you can take the tape off and live a normal life. That will never be for me. They're not growing back. I keep watering them. Nothing's happened in 9 years yet. Although, some biohackers say they're getting to stem cells that can. But, and that's what it's been over the years. I've had many people with 10 fingers tell me how to do stuff. And, it's very interesting. Coworkers, we've had discussions. They tell me, well, just try it this way. So I start to have a candid discussion with them, and they go, okay. And I go, so how about we do this scenario where you walk in my shoes, and I'll tape your fingers up, and you go about your day. And oh, yeah, no problem. And I start to pull that tape out, and they look at me, and they go, we'll have to do it another time. We got to get this done right now. Yet, I don't get another time to try it.
Right.
That's my day every day.
Anything else you want to add about forgiveness?
We just got to forgive ourselves.
Okay.
We got to forgive those individuals because they do not know what we're going through. So we need
So forgive their judgments because they are going to judge harshly.
Yes.
Okay, what role does gratitude play in all this? You found some gratitude in your accident.
I've been so blessed. So that's why I am trying to get out and educate for the other amputees that are missing.
So what would you say to amputees or us in general, the power of gratitude with this trauma psychology, though?
Be gentle on yourself.
Okay, that's the forgiveness part. Where does gratitude come in?
Count your blessings. You're alive.
Right? You still have up. 7.
Yes.
Or however you want to look at it.
Yes.
Now the glass still half full. Okay.
Yeah.
But find the gratitude in it. Find the blessing.
My blessing is getting out to educate everyone for a change, to try and change the world. I could stay at home, just living my way, but it's not going to make a change. There's a difference between these fingers and these fingers. They're making them better, but without having communication of what works.
Well, what blew me away is you told me you had to do all this work on your own. It's not like the hand specialist put you in touch with the prosthesis person.
No. And again, that's one of those holes in the system. So if the insurance company is willing to pay. Yes, they require a prescription. The person that has to sign that prescription is the hand surgeon.
And he knows nothing about prosthetics.
And within my stories of talking to individuals, you know how many times I've heard from an individual that their hand surgeon says, there's nothing out there for me, so they're not going to sign the script.
Wow. So you found gratitude in this. You go from gratitude to joy, which we're here on earth to find joy. Haven't found her yet. But joy is the purpose that we're here, to learn how to be happy, right? And so you talk about how you've actually found joy, and you talk about the joy list. Talk about that as a companion to forgiveness and gratitude.
My joy is embracing what I have left and my family. The joy of helping other people find their joy. You know, I'm a father, a grandfather, a great-grandfather, and my joy is being with my family and kids. You know, ironically, a few months ago, I spoke at an event, and it was joy. That was the word of the night, and we all spoke on joy. And yeah, you know, I've had this accident. I'm missing digits, but I wake up every day grateful for what's left, grateful for my family, my friends, the great people like you that have come into my life. And I share that every day with people around the world. It's kind of funny. This hand is probably the most famous hand in the world. I have people reach out to me through social media all the time. I had a mother recently from Romania. Her 3-year-old child was in an accident, missing the same 3 fingers as I am. And, you know, the other day I posted a video of me building a shed to my social media account, and this mother reached out and she goes, you know, I follow 2 or 3 of you individuals that are missing fingers, and this story right here of you building your shed and stuff gives me hope that my little boy can live a more normal life after his accident.
So let's talk about navigating your new life, both in terms of at home and in the job. So regardless of what trauma we encounter, you can use your hand as an example, but talk to me in terms of navigating that journey at home and at work.
So navigating that journey, navigating it at home, everything I do, I have to do it differently. Everything. You know, I don't have the touch sensation, so I have to rely on other senses, sight being the main one. That spills over into work, the same thing. Everything that I used to do muscle memory-wise and stuff, I have to think about.
So a companion to your forgiveness then is also grace.
Yes.
As you navigate your new future, there's got to be a lot of grace for yourself because you're going to make mistakes. You've got to relearn things. So be patient with yourself.
Yeah, you know, kind of I jokingly say it's a blessing from COVID is the fact that we don't use real money anymore, so to speak, because, you know, back before COVID, go in, buy a soda, whatever, candy bar, you know, throw a couple bucks on the counter, and they give you your change. They lay it on the counter. Well, what do? You kind of put your hand up there, and you sweep the change into your hand. You know how much money's gone on the floor for me? And it's like you reach down, I'll pick up that quarter, the dime, maybe the nickel if I nod in. The rest is yours. You know, Since COVID, we don't have that challenge as much anymore.
Jeff, I want to end the way we started. How has this book changed you the past year?
I had to dig deep, heal myself so I can help to heal others.
And where are you on that healing process?
It's a journey every day. But, nothing else. I say everyone should write a book. Whether you publish it or not, that's a different story.
Right.
But
Because it's healing. It's cathartic, isn't it?
100%. Digging deep and learning what's deep down in your soul.
Wow, you dug deep. You pulled out the shovel and you dug. And I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Talk about ordering the book and connecting with you on social media. How do we do it?
You can buy the book through Amazon, or you can reach out to me through social media at Jeff Soelberg, Jeff Giving a Hand, or Pointed in the Right Direction book. If you want an autographed one, reach out to me and I'll autograph it, put it in the mail to you. My phone is on 24/7. I am here to help as many people. This is my life.
Gotcha.
I live it every day. I'm sharing it. I want to help everyone I can help.
Jeff, thank you so much for sharing your story today and also the journey that you went on to dig deep into your soul to put things together in a great book, Pointed in the Right Direction. I highly recommend it, whether you're an amputee or just someone who's trying to understand more fully what this whole journey of life is about. And keep shining brightly, because someone out there needs to be guided by your light.